I call Ron Mark.
Rise to take a call. And Mr. Chairman, I will take your guidance and I will try to be new, novel and creative in our contribution, but I do have to be a tad boring in terms of putting New Zealand First position on the record. And I do remind some of the... Oh, look, there's Mr. Foss. Sorry, what was it again? Origin not allowed? We'll stay with you. I think you should be at home worrying about your next nomination, actually, Mr. Foss, but never mind. But I have to put on the record New Zealand First position, and forgive me if we take a slightly boring line in some aspects, because some things that we would like to mention with respect to the considerations of the bill. Not a lot I can disagree with, Mr. Chairman, in the summations that have been made already. I went back through, prior to coming down the House, some of the submissions, particularly the submission from Tania Tangaroa, where expressed their whānau, their hapu's concerns over the imposition on their rights in terms of determining how the natural resources within the blue waters might be managed, their fears and worries about the 55 Maui dolphins. I did listen with great interest to the presentation or the submission from PPANZ or PEPANZ, and I was somewhat mystified, Mr. Chairman, to say the least. It seemed to me that this legislation, or the genesis for this piece of legislation, actually lays in the legislation that went through in 2013, which all occurred while I was out of the House, having my sabbatical break as the Mayor of Carterton. And so what I gleaned from those submissions were that the base legislation that was passed in 2013 was flawed. It had holes in it. The responsibility of that is the national government. In fact, the responsibility of that was one Mr. Nick Smith. It injected a problem into the legislation, a problem which the oil industry wanted the government to resolve. Cabinet agreed that the problem was injected in was not their intent. It was an oversight, and moved to satisfy the oil company's needs by putting this legislation in front of the House. It's interesting to think back, Mr. Chairman, as to where this problem occurred, because in the light of what's happening today, in an attempt to be creative and interesting, one can't escape the obvious conclusion that wherever Nick Smith tends to walk, disaster tends to follow. And we're seeing time and time again, whether it was in local government, with the rushed, botched way in which he attacked the Local Government Act, and now with what's happening with Ngāti Whātua and the first right of refusal, and then on top of that, this piece of legislation that this House is spending an exorbitant amount of time and taxpayers' money fixing up legislation that Mr. Smith is responsible for. And I'm really pleased, Mr. Chairman, that on the select committee we have people of the calibre of Scott Simpson and Todd Muir. And these are the types of people who could quite easily slot into Nick Smith's job and do a far better job than that which we're trying to redress right now. There's only one reason we're here doing this, because of the minister's failings. And the question when we talk about this bill, and we're all unanimously in agreement with the measures that have to be taken. We actually agreed on the amendment to change the application ring consent, the lead time to 9 months. We unanimously agreed on that by sitting and talking it through. Something which the minister himself is not renowned for. Talking through is not what he's widely acknowledged for. He doesn't display the skills as someone who can talk things through. And hence we are fixing his stuff up. So Mr. David Bennett, who will never be in cabinet, in fact Todd Mueller will be there before him, he interjects across the House, but he does it in a very embarrassed way because he's embarrassed for Nick Smith. He's embarrassed for Nick Smith, but Mr. Chairman, I'd only say to Mr. Bennett, you're backing a dead horse, get on the right horse. Smith's gone. The sooner he's out of his misery, the sooner we'll stop having to pass legislation like this to fix his muck-ups. And I will not actually just stop with Mr. Smith. the oil company, Shell, Todd, need to accept some responsibility themselves. Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair,
Members,
Mr.
the
Chair.
question is...